The younger generation is very scarce in the church. Why are so many young people leaving the church? Let's talk about the elephant in the room. What kids think about the church.
Thank you for watching The Big E, the elephant in the room. My name is Melissa. Today we will be talking about what kids think about the church today. This conversation is going to be very impactful. So we hope everyone is tuning in to really hear what the younger generation has to say about the church today. So we have wonderful guests. We have Cecily King. Did I say Cecily right? Cecily King. I want to make sure I said that right. Jasmine Williams and Chase Howard. So we want to thank you for being part of this episode, The Big E, the elephant in the room, because you are the voice for the church and for your generation. So I'm going to go into it, and whoever wants to take this question first, is your family active in the church today?
I can't speak for anybody else, but I actually grew up in the church. Both my parents went to Catholic school growing up, and it was a boarding Catholic school. And it took my grandma to actually take me to church, to the point that it's ingrained in me, and I feel wrong if I don't go to church. Plus, with like having like aunts and uncles that are also pastors as well, it's the culture of the family.
Even before I was born, there were Christians and in the church. Not any specific like denomination, but they're still very active.
Okay. And for you, Chase?
Yeah, I want to go ahead and let the ladies go first, don't want to do too much. But without a doubt, since generations before me, before my dad, we've always kind of been active. I mean, my great grandma was a teacher at Berean SDA, their school program, and my grandma was choir, everything. And then to my dad's generation, my dad was on committees. My uncle was singing. It's Howard is kind of synonymous with Berean, so I've always been in the church, and I've always, I grew up in that, and even now I'm active in it, and my parents are too. So I definitely grew up. I won't say I grew up. It kind of grew in me. They helped me grow being in the church, I would say.
So what do y'all think about the church today? What is your thoughts about what's going on now, since we're kind of more virtual? Sometimes we're in the church, we're not in the church, but just overall, what do you feel about the church as a whole?
It's a mess, because when you think about that statement, we say the church, that means we mean all of it, the different denominations. You can be Baptist, Pentecostal, SDA. Yeah, it's never really had a system, because we all believe in the same thing, but we go about it in different ways. So it's always kind of been a mess. But with this generation, I feel when we see something that's wrong, we don't stay quiet about it. We make sure everybody knows it's a mess, compared to other generations where they're like, okay, we gotta keep this hush. It'll be okay. We just gotta, stick with it. So I feel there are churches now that are attempting to find new ways to keep the message but modernize it. So I feel like there's always a positive in a negative situation. That's like, I don't want to get like, oh, preacher, but I feel like this thing about God, he works in chaotic situations. So there's always that trend of there's always going to be good things happening. And I feel like there's to be focused on, but in this situation, there's a lot more wrong, I believe, still, with, the things that the abuse, the verbal, mental, and sadly sometimes physical abuse that goes on in the church, especially in a Black church, especially in the Black church. And also, at this time where so many things that aren't of Christ, I would say, are getting normalized. People are like, and people my generation see all this abuse that's happening, are like, why would we want to become Christians? Why would we want to go into this church that's treating all these people wrong? So I feel like, there's lots of Christians talking about how the world's drifting away from the church. We're kicking people out.
Mm, mm. So any piggyback on that, ladies? Any piggyback on that, what he just said?
I would piggyback on that. I think now with what he was saying that there is a uprising of people not wanting to go to church, but I think the problem is people don't know how to separate Jesus from the church. You know, people think that they're one and synonymous when people let's talk about it. Back in the day, Jesus was like, he's not for religion, but then he's not for like, other issues as well. And I think when it comes down to the church itself, is like, are you practicing what you're preaching? Are you using the Bible to scorn, or are you using the Bible to love? And it sucks that people are only looking at it as, if you have a problem with one Christian, then it must be all Christians and all Christians are the same, when that's not true, because not all humans are the same.
Yes.
It stigmatizes the church because there's so many different denominations for this reason. God doesn't change, but the way that we access God might be different. And I think it's showing up now more than ever. There are people that will say that they're followers of Jesus, but they won't call themselves Christians because of the connotation behind it.
Yes. Any insight on that, Jasmine?
I agree that there are flaws in the church, even though there are good things. One thing that I like to point out is that there's this thing where it's tradition over the word. So you'll see a lot of people like, oh, if you want to take communion, you have to dress in all white. If you're not in all white, you can't take communion. Things like that deter people from being a part of a certain congregation or a part of a certain church. There's also a thing of being acceptable to everybody, which is sort of a bad thing in terms of many churches, I think, just want to sell their church to people and just get a lot of followers instead of telling them the truth. A lot of people are like, oh, I'm living my own truth. And the church says, yeah, you can live your own truth, but you have to tell them that no, there's one truth. And if they accept it, they can come. They don't lovingly say, you have disagreements with that person instead of like bashing people that aren't like you. So I feel like there needs to be work in that.
Wow. So great insight from all of you, because this is true transparency to, what you guys are seeing, and really letting the church really know how y'all are feeling. And hopefully with this conversation, we can maybe be an impact to the church community. So what is your thoughts on the activities that are taking place? Do you think that the church really provides enough activities and supports to the younger generation today?
I can only talk about being my church, and I'm grateful that I get to go to the church I go to. With that being said, not everyone has the same resources. Not everyone can go to a mega church. A lot of these churches have a congregation whose congregation's average age is like 65, and you have a sprinkle of kids here and there. And what can you do? Because you're not hip to the times that we may be going through to know what they necessarily like. And it doesn't mean that you can't ask, but you also don't have the concept of it. So like you'll think, ooh, oh, they just need to go to the movies and go hang out and play basketball. And yeah, that can be true, but they can also do that outside of the church too. They don't have to do it in church.
So any insight from you, Chase or Jasmine? Do you feel like the churches provide enough activity support for the younger generation today?
Well, for my experience, the church that I'm in, we have a lot of activities and support, specifically at my church, from Sunday school for K through 6, 7 through 12. Even if they graduate, there's a young adult ministry, and we also have teen small groups where teens can talk to youth leaders outside of church, like on a Wednesday or a Friday, to still have that connection. But I realized that a lot of churches don't have that, which I think is not good for them, because you don't show any progress of growing. If the kids are the future, then you should invest not only in the childhood stage, but also in the teenage stage, because the ages like 13 to 17 is where you can like lose kids, and then in
Mhm,
their adulthood they'll won't be around Christ-centered people anymore. So I
mhm,
feel like in order to grow your church, you have to invest in all stages of youth, and know that they're important too, and give them support that they need. Maybe a small group, or
mhm,
maybe something else.
I was lucky enough to be put in a church that was actually built because like the younger people in the older church decided that we needed something to like actually invest in, not be so tight, for lack of a better word. So I was lucky to have younger people leading the church. So we have activities. I mean, we just had in December we got a mobile roller rink, and we vibed out to Kirk Franklin and a little bit of like R&B music, which is after sundown and all that. But I was lucky. I've been lucky to have that. But objectively, I don't feel that churches are doing enough from being around and being in. I'm in high school still. It's my first year. I'm a freshman, and like seeing this like the sheer amount of kids who like don't ever. It was weird for me because like my stuff church is always doing stuff. So I'm like, I'm gonna be doing this. I'm going to some of my church. Like, oh, that's nice. I just go with my mom and that's it. Like, there's a lot of kids who they just go. They might have a few friends, or might go to a mega church and know absolutely nobody. But I feel like those churches, like the various mega churches, have the most of them have the resources to, and lots of them do. Like Elevation is on it. I mean, their activities are like citywide, so they certain churches like Elevation are on it, but like churches with like I feel like older people in leadership sometimes don't, because they want to like stay traditional and be like, yeah, this is what it's for. This building is for this building's for worshiping and all that, not for any. You can do that all that secular stuff outside. I feel like churches who have the systems and resources need to do a better job of engaging and seeing separating Christianity and seeking a relationship with God from like the church and the traditions we built that are flawed and were built flawed.
mhm, mhm. So, and that's a great point, because now you're thinking you have the older generation that are in leadership, and they really don't know what the younger generation possibly needs. But do you really think maybe if we had more of the younger generation in some of these positions, these leadership roles, or being probably maybe a assistant to a leadership role, they can probably bring more support and also awareness to what the younger generation can possibly need. Basically allowing them to really have a voice, because a lot of times our churches don't allow the younger generation to have a voice. Do you think if that was in place, that would make a difference?
Always. Well, I'll just go off of that. Like I always feel that's how things move forward. I
Mhm.
mean, eventually people die. I can't put up any other way. I mean, like eventually you're gonna get older and you're gonna pass, and younger people are gonna have to take in that position.
Mhm,
That's just how the life cycle works.
mhm,
But yeah, that sometimes they go till they bout on their deathbed, and because they can't let go of power. That's the thing about the church. Uh, we have God's word, but it was built by humans. The Christianity was built by us, and humans aren't perfect. There's only
mhm,
one perfect human that ever exists. So I feel like some took that being like Jesus, and there was like, oh, being like Jesus means I'm perfect, because I usually they're not, but they think that they have that power, and they like uh arrogance and egos are ruled. Ego rule the church.
yeah, yeah.
Ego rule it. So if we've seen even like in this country, people who are younger, you get that voice and that opinion, and that ends up moving things. And so once they do, older people leave. The church is going to continue to prosper and be better than it was.
So you brought some great points out, Chase. We're just going to run to a quick commercial break, and we will be right back.
We know that God has called you to a mission. but sometimes you need a little help getting there. At the Center for Clergy and Church Support, we strive to encourage, empower, and equip ministries and nonprofit organizations to do all that God has called them to do. We handle basic legal issues, conduct administrative and financial audits, and strengthen organizations in community engagement and capacity building. Let us help your ministry or nonprofit in advancing the kingdom of God. Visit clergycenter.org for more information.
Would you like to piggyback on what he just said before our commercial break?
One thing that I wanted to add is that I 100% agree with you, Melissa. I go to a ethnic church, so there's Indian, there's Black, there's white, and at my church we have a 26-year-old pastor running our young adult ministry. We have a young person running the teen ministry, and our worship team is made up of people under 30. So for me, I've seen a lot of things happening, not only with doing the teen service and the small groups, but also in the adult building as well, where they hold their sermons. After the George Floyd incident, it was brought to the elders of the church the attention of to the attention of our pastors from the young adults ministry to talk about racial injustice and to talk about police brutality, which we never did before. So I feel also that is critical to have young people in the or implement young people into powers where you can be worship leaders, be pastors, and they also have a big voice in what activities like Vacation Bible School. We even have retreats now for teens and young adults. So I think it's a great thing and something that's vital to have the youth constantly be in places of power in the church.
Okay, and so you had some insight on it as well.
Yeah, I know for me growing up, I got the privilege to have these different chances of having 40-hour famines and going on breaks and having summer camp, which was Christian camp. And it's not the ones that you have at your church, but you're actually leaving and joining other churches and having fun. And I think what made that so special is because of the leaders that we had in place. They weren't too old to the point that they could be our parents, but they were mature enough to guide us throughout the journey, make sure that we were good, and be, dare I say, that liaison between the kids who are trying to learn their faith and grow better in Jesus and God, and versus the parents. They're like, no, do as I say, not as I do. So I think with understanding that and hearing more of, hey, I like to have fun doing this, is it okay that my friend comes too? Because it's not only biblical, but it's fun and it's exciting. And it's something I want my friends to join. So yeah.
So this is a great time for you guys to just think big. If you had an opportunity to build and create your own church, what would it look like?
Wow. Okay. They give Chase the keys to a church. Okay, let me think about this. I would first start off with my team. You can't do anything without a team. What's Michael without Rodman and Pippen? Nothing. So I would be looking for people who already in churches, who are doing good things within the community. Community service would be my thing. I'm telling you, community service is where it's at. That's our job. What did Jesus do? He was out helping people who are in need. Community service would be the focal point of my church. And I would want it to be big, but I'm a person where I want to have a relationship with everybody. And this is assuming I'm the pastor or something like that, or someone in. I want to have a relationship with every soul that comes to my door or comes to the door. I want to be able to know what they got going on, because you can't you can't really help somebody if you don't know where they need help. That I would want to put it in the area of town that lower economic areas to give people, hope in those areas. You always have the church to come down to. You always have opportunity at Jesus, and also to have my insight with people around the area to bring businesses there. Like I want to have something that looks nice within that area. Kind of hopefully create a ripple effect, because that's, like I said, that's our church. It's all about serving the community. It's all about serving each other. Because what are we without each other?
Mhm.
That would be the it wouldn't even have my name. It would be like the area church. The let's see, the Bakersville. Let's say it's Bakersfield area church. I don't even want it to have take me out of it and give it to the people.
Mm-hmm. So any insight, ladies, what would be your ideal church if you had to build your own and create and build your own church?
Honestly, I wouldn't call it a church, but I'll call it more of a ministry, because I don't want a building. I don't want to be stagnant, even though it's great for people to know that if there's a place that they need to go, it's there. I want to go out into the community, similar to what Chase just said, and actually interact with the community and be there with the community. There's some programs now that do it great, like they'll go into a neighborhood and call the kids out and then just play with them and teach them the gospel. There's some that even go into churches and just like hang out with the kids, help them out and talk about Jesus. And seeing how those ministries have flourished, it will make me want to do the same with my own.
Mm-hmm. And Jasmine, and what would be your ideal?
Well, first for me, I would make sure that the church is multicultural, someplace where everybody won't feel uncomfortable, like it's just one set of people. And then also how to make sure, like Chase said, we have community service, whether it's handing out groceries to the neighborhoods around us or providing vacation Bible school for the people around us. I'd make sure there's different types of counseling and that we have counselors on our staff. So if it's marriage counseling, family counseling, um, counseling for teens or kids, and also make sure that we have a set Sunday school for like kids from K through 6, but like separated. So you have K through 6, 7 through 12, where you can get deeper in the word by having like apologetics classes or other classes, and then transition them into young adults ministry where they can go with their peers. Still keep the retreats open for like fall retreats or winter retreats. And also maybe in our artistic ministry, so like if you do poetry or music, you can one Sunday children or teens can like display their talents and the congregation can like watch them during a sermon. Just build like a family oriented church.
Well, these are great examples of what a church really should withhold, and hopefully we can you are given this opportunity to build that church, build that that vision, because that is truly needed in our community. That is needed across. I always said, if we can take and just start with one and go into, like you said, those urban cities, and just be that one, I can call it kind of like that one hub, and just kind of generate that same various foundation that all of y'all said. I think we can really truly make a difference in our church as well as in our community. So I have one another impactful scenario that I want to just kind of throw at you guys. Behind the scenes, you're talking to your friends, y'all are talking candidly about church. What are y'all really saying? Or if you don't mind, what are you really saying so the church today can know what they can do better?
I don't want to keep talking because I know I've been signing off a lot, but that's funny. I literally was just texting my friend today, and she texted me and was like, she went to church with her friend. Now, this friend, she had told me to mention her on here though. She's just not like the church going type, if you know what I mean. So she was just, it was really nice when she told me today, that she went with her friend. She said she had fun. I was like, nope. And I'll read exactly what I put because we being candid. The church actually isn't bad when you don't got judgmental old people there. And then we just got in this whole thing about, have a relationship with God for ourselves, and how we get so caught up in the nuts and bolts of it. What's this person wearing? Are they with so and so? They don't come together no more. They don't, and it's our natural inclination to do that because we're human. But how are we gonna try to be like God when we judging people? Like I try to be like Jesus. That defeats the purpose. So if we defeat our own purpose, why would anybody want to come join? That makes sense.
Do you really think social media has become a big distraction to your spiritual walk with God?
Yes. I think a lot of people would rather use what I would consider spiritual junk food versus actual substance. So you'll get a clip from a sermon that's only like 30 seconds or a minute long, and you'll be like, "Ooh, that's what I needed to hear." And that could have been what you needed to hear off of social media and Instagram and TikTok, but you're not getting the discernment that you could have gotten if you actually went and listened to it. And it's nice to pull up these quotes, but then some of these people are saying quotes because they sound nice versus actually knowing what the actual verse is about because they're not even looking in the book and they don't even know the context of it. And I mean, it's a great way to get people in, but it's not a great place to stay.
So. To really dive into the studies of the Bible. Gotcha. Got any insight on that, Jasmine?
I kind of fall into that trap sometimes, to be honest. I mean, I already read the Bible, and like if it is a scripture, then I'll like go to see the context. But like with all these like sermon clips and stuff, I'm like, that's good, but like I don't know. For me personally, I don't go on social media that much, so it doesn't really affect me. So yeah.
And any last thoughts, Chase, on that? Do you feel social media has become a big distraction?
I'm gonna try to keep it brief, but I do believe, I feel like the Christian part of it is about like 3% of like all of social media, and you're gonna see the other 97% when you see the 3. And also, like, people it comes from, sometimes you see them, it's the things they do, and you see them post about Jesus, and it's like it don't correlate. So it's social media in general. Like, I don't want to sound like that, can sound like the youngest. Like, I don't want to sound like the old dude. It might come from a salty place, but like I just don't. I feel like it's a distraction, kind of, in general. If you're like real focused, like if you're on this focus mindset, if you want to come closer with God, you don't open Instagram. You open the book, like Miss King said. You open the book because that's where your answers lie. So I don't feel like if you really want to get real with it, if you made this decision that you want to focus and get a relationship with God, don't use social media. If you want to be focused anyway, just don't use social media.
Well, we thank you, all panel guests, to really dive into this conversation. Hopefully our church community can really see what needs to be done going forward in the younger church community, because I think it starts here. It starts with the communication. It starts with the conversation. And we thank you so much for being the vessels to talk about this conversation candidly. So thank you again for watching The Big E, the elephant in the room, where we speak about the unspeakable.